Welcome to the Agile Leadership Videocast. Today we have Jeff Dalton, the Chief Evangelist for Agile CXO. Welcome, Jeff. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Tim. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Well, good. Let's get right into it. So tell us about Agile CXO.
So Agile CXO is a research and development organization that has assessed a couple of hundred Agile organizations over the years, and we've compiled a set of best practices and actions and a way to assess Agile organizations. So we put these models together to help Agile leaders succeed with building great Agile throughout their enterprise. And we're going to be hosting our second conference this year, May 3rd in Washington, D.C. at the Agile Leadership Camp.
Well, that sounds great. So what's going to happen at the Agile Leadership Camp?
The camp is a pretty cool event. We packed a lot into one day. We know executives and leaders are super busy people. They've got a lot of things going on. Last thing they have time for is to spend a week at a conference. So we packed into one day, a half day of learning, where we'll be doing not just learning about Agile leadership, but gaming. And then we'll be doing some brainstorming and some problem solving around some of the biggest impediments that Agile leaders face. So coming out of that event, we're going to have a whole list of things to work on, to improve with our model, to share with all the guests, and ultimately share with the rest of the Agile community.
Great. I noticed it looks like you're somehow incorporating music into this event too. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. This went really well last year. A lot of us in Agile CXO have a background in music, and we noted early on that jazz and Agile have a lot of similarities. Matter of fact, I wrote an article about this for the Cutter IT Business Journal, where I dissected a bunch of Charlie Parker's music and lined it up with Agile ceremonies and Agile behaviors. And there's an awful lot of give and take in a jazz band. There's an awful lot of listening and retrospectives going on, and improvements and improvisation, doing what it takes to get to the end of the engagement. And a lot of the concepts that we hear about in Agile values were started, if not started, at least popularized by jazz musicians in the 1930s, and has been with us ever since. So one of the things we're doing to help reinforce that notion is we have one of Washington's great jazz groups, Dixon Jordan, will be with us, and he'll be interacting with some of the speakers right on stage and showing how improvisation can really bring together the people and can really help improve the result of any project. So it's going to be great.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. So you're bringing Agile leaders together. We see a lot of Agile workshops and things, but it always seems to be for the teams and the developers. So how does the concept start that we're gonna work with mostly leaders now?
Yeah, there's a whole litany of a whole history of Agile evangelism and Agile training and Agile books and conferences, and 99% of them are targeted at the Agile team, the Scrum team. There's some that's gotten a little more specific around Scrum Masters or Scrum product owners. But one thing we hear over and over again when we conduct these assessments, and like I said, we've done a couple of hundred of them, in almost every assessment, the same results come back. Leadership doesn't have strength or capability in building large-scale Agile. And they've spent, to be a leader, especially in technology, you spend your entire career learning how to get uphill, how to move up in the organization. And business leaders call this learning how to climb the greasy pole. And you become an expert at how to climb up and how to move up in the organization. And many of the things required to do that are antithetical to Agile values. So by the time you get to be CIO or director or VP of engineering, you've learned a lot of techniques, and none of them are Agile techniques. Along with Agile becomes self-organization. And a lot of people miss this, that you can have an Agile team, but you can't have an Agile team that's not a self-organizing team, and at least not a successful one. And managing self-organization is a completely different discipline than managing a traditional organization. So the things you learned climbing that greasy pole, the things you learned at Stanford and Harvard aren't going to apply anymore in a self-organizing world. So we decided to do something about that. So here's the real impediment. Every single team member we talked to said this to us: leadership isn't getting it. So we decided to put Agile CXO together last year to help with that situation, to help Agile leaders get up to speed and become proficient leaders of self-organizing teams.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you, as the chief evangelist for Agile CXO, you're going to be one of the leaders talking to us. Who else is going to be there that had some of these experiences that they're going to share?
Well, we've got all kinds of great speakers. The two main speakers, Mary Beth Westmoreland is our opening keynote. And Mary Beth is CTO of a company called Blackbaud that has a couple of thousand developers, and they're 100% agile. And they had a really unique challenge where they integrated acquisitions. I think it was 8 different acquisitions over a 2-year period, and brought them all into their agile universe. And so her challenge was leading that. And she's going to talk a little bit about that. So that'll be super interesting. Mary Beth was also named one of 50 most powerful women in information technology last year. So I think you're going to find her extremely impressive. Our other keynote is Greg Pfister, who probably was the first and loneliest voice of bringing Agile to federal government years ago. And I think you know Greg. He's been on our Agile Leadership podcast, and he really turned it around, especially at VA, where he really convinced them that Agile is the way to go. And Greg is a vice president at Accenture Government Services, and he'll be talking about his journey of moving some of these federal government agencies over to a more agile space. So in addition to Mary Beth and Greg, we've got 10 lightning speakers, 10 lightning talks, 10-minute talks that are gonna, in a rapid fire format, gonna talk to you about experiences, everything from agile metrics. Got one person talking about agile contracts, which is a great subject for state and federal government. We've got a couple of people talking about measurement. So yeah, some really fantastic speakers. And in the morning, we're going to be having facilitated session by some great people as well. So it's going to be a great day.
Great. We're looking forward to it. Looking forward to that. Any final thoughts you have before we close out the interview?
Well, if you're anywhere near Washington, D.C. on May 3rd, the Agile Leadership Camp is one day where you're going to get more information and more insight into agility at the organizational level than you will anywhere else. And it's only one day. So please sign up and register at, let's see, 2018agile.org. And we hope to see everybody there. Great. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thank you, Jeff.
We'll see you.
All right. Bye.